Uh, Hello friends, in this video we are going to look after the dimension of risk management. This is an extension of our last lecture which was on risk, and now this is something to do with like how we are going to manage it, how, or if we are not able to manage it of our own, then we have to mitigate it to someone. So in this particular slide, risk management means, you see, when you have defined your element of risk and you are able to successfully quantify it. So now next is like you have to create uh, like uh, uh, like alternative option whereby you can transfer it to someone whom like you see transferring it is very cheap and effective. Any risk transfer will involve a cost. So if cost is less and the like overall cost, any the loss amount is huge, so it is better to always delegate it to someone else who can better manage it. And then finally, risk management comes with something called as follow-up strategy, where you just see where whatever action plan you have put in place, whether they are working or not. If there is no execution as per your desired expectation, so then you may be required to change your plans over a period of time. Now, you see, this is the overall process. First of all, you have to define your main objectives of risk management exercise. You see, when you define your objective means, whether it is short term, whether it is long term, or anything else. You see, you need to make it very clear. Because if you mix up multiple things together, it may not be viable. Maybe the people are getting confused, hence, it has to be very clear. Second is like identifying the type of risk exposure that you have. So, once you identify your risk, then only you will be able to quantify it. Because you see, if certain risks they are not clearly identified, they cannot be categorized into their actual particular nature. And you see, risk management is always done according to the nature of risk, and if you're not able to understand their nature, it will be tough to manage. Next is like once we identify a risk factor, we need to evaluate the exposure. Evaluating exposure means the quantum of loss which may be probably possible in this particular case, the probability of default, the exposure at a given level of default means, you see, these are certain parameters that we need to look into this particular dimension of evaluating an exposure. Next is like once you do it, then you have to identify certain alternatives through which you may be managing your risk. You can manage it of your own, you can delegate it to someone else, like taking an insurance policy or in taking some hedging position in derivative. You see, this is just to protect yourself for a given amount of future expected loss. No? Just not to go into an unfavorable situation is what we are avoiding in this. Now you see, last is like you have to implement your strategy, whatever strategy you have defined, and then you have to review this strategy over a periodic interval so that if something is going wrong, you can just correct it as per the requirement. Risk analysis involves two segments. One is risk identification, and second is risk evaluation. You see, this is must for risk management. And now, certain important points which you should keep in mind, like for any institution who is into financing business, this is must. Any your top management, your senior management people should have a very good foresightedness. They know what is the state of market, and according to the change in market conditions or macroeconomic factors, you should also be able to change your policies in line to the same. Next is like the policies, procedures, and maybe some this limit means some loan exposure limits for particular segments or particular individuals should be well defined. You see, when you don't have a clear policy on table, the people who are actually indulging directly with customers may not be having a clarity on the same. So if you have something well documented, you know, if something goes wrong, how you have to take care for it. Any manual of instruction is must, and every organization should work on drafting these manuals first, you see, before actually launching their operations. So it is like a very essential component. Next is like, you see, what you do is like risk measurement is required, monitoring of risk is required, and then management information system plays a key role. You see, how do you do monitor these accounts? So like you see, there are good number of accounts with any financial institution. You have to categorize them into different groups. Groups means A class, B class, C class. Means A means very good, they don't need any follow. B means some sort of follow. C means maybe risky segment. So once you have your categorization done, means now you know where you have to put in efforts to recover your like asset on time. So it will help you, but this is what system is helping you. Manually you may not be able to manage it. So if you have a report on your table where you can see who are the defaulters, accordingly you can see, you can do a effective follow up. You can get your dues cleared on time, may have effective follow-up. This is all what is going to bring in a change. Next is like you should have a comprehensive internal control mechanism. Okay, so you see loans sanctioning power, is it centralized or is it decentralized? Top management has to decide. So earlier, if you look into the market, you'll find that everyone was allowed to sanction loan at branch level. But now things have gone into decentralized mode. Means everything has to be taken into sorry. Nowadays it is like now centralization is what is being promoted. You cannot sanction a loan from branch. You have to send the application to your respective regional office or head office for the approval. You see, this process, it may be time consuming, slightly time consuming, but it will be better because you see, you'll be able to manage your clientele base in a very effective manner. Because you see, otherwise, sometimes with local pressure, with political influence, you may be giving loans which may not be a genuine case. So let's some central authority evaluate them and then do the appraisals. And then adequate policy procedure and limits should be put in. This point has been repeated twice. Sorry for essentials of risk management, clarity of vision. This is for top management. Segregation of business function. This is for the operative staff. So you see, you know which loan going into which type of category. So if it is having a high element of risk, so risk provisioning is to be done. So everything is interrelated. So if you have a well classified business, it is easy to manage. Product designing. You see, this is for product planning and development division. So if your product is defective, let's say interest rate is very high, or you put in some conditions which are very tough to manage. You see, it is creating problem for the borrower. Maybe this leads to a default in future. So it's better you define a product according to the need of the customer. Internal control system means communication, and then within department communication, approvals, everything has to be having a very clear timeline so that if anything is getting delayed anywhere, we can check. Effective MIS management information system helps you to have your decisions on time, well crafted, without any element of error. Now you see this is like a very strong literature review which has been done by some experts in past. You see here in first column, it is all various types of risk, which includes product, liquidity, market, portfolio, transaction, fraud, legal, reputation, external business risk. You see all types of risks have been defined here, and then followed by mitigation recommendation. What type of like strategies can we bring in place to avoid these risks? So let's say it's product risk. Product risk means what you have brought in into market may not be suiting their requirements. So it is like you see, hence what you need to do is like according to the type of client you should charge it to the people. So different price differential can be there, price differential can be there, means interest rate variation can be put in into different loan accounts just to differentiate between a good and a bad client. Okay, this will help you to charge according to the type of client. Similarly, liquidity risk, you go for saving products. For market risk, you should try to focus on local entrepreneurs only. If you are working on a very wide market area, hence you may have a very high element of market risk. So you may concentrate, market risk will be less. But when you go into portfolio risk, it is totally opposite. Portfolio means you cannot concentrate, you have to go for diversification. Everywhere you should have your exposure. So you see, you have to balance in between these. And similarly, transaction risk means bring in more people who are educated, more trained, more skilled. So your transaction risk will come down. Fraud, like you see, bring in incentive culture into your system, such like where people are actually committed to work. A fraud is something which you see when they get demotivated, they may be going into. Legal risk means again you need to be having a very strong legal department who is very aligned to what is happening in market. Whenever there is a change, you have to do accordingly needful modifications in your policies and procedures. So that is how you can avoid this legal risk. Next is like reputation risk. For this, what you need to do is like you need to work with the society, you need to work with the community, you need to change as per their expectation. If something goes wrong, you have to acknowledge it. Transparency has to be brought in, else there is no scope of avoiding these risks. And similarly, if you find external business risk very high in certain areas, you see, go to certain countries where you don't have it. Let's government bring in a more transparent system. Let's government bring in the required resources. So these are the things that have been mentioned by various scholars in past. You see, last column, it is telling you that researchers who have worked on the same dimension. 2011 11 11 is 195 1997. These are the years in which the work has been done. Again, financial ratios, operational risk, and strategic risk has been defined with clear strategies of how to manage it individually. Okay, so you go one by one and you see everything is manageable. If you know it, if you can classify it, managing it is not a big challenge. This is the concept called as functional risk metrics for any microfinancing institution. If you look what they do, what we have done is like on one side we have put in various types of risk, and on other side we have put in their regular routine job. So what are they doing? Investing money, busy in treasury management, busy in lending, individual and group, and similarly payment system that they follow, and management information system that they have. And you see we have done a cross tabulation of which type of risk is possible in which type of activity, so we need to plan accordingly. And you see, once you know, if you're aware, then you can go for it. Thank you.